All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to get started in just one moment. I'm letting in some participants into the room. All right. All right, good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I want to say welcome to everyone who's participating tonight in the College Planning and NCAA Eligibility webinar. I am excited about this actually, and I want to say thank you for participating. This webinar is for high school student and scholar athletes and their parents. Particularly high school students who play sports and has a desire to play sports in college. This webinar will be recorded and streamed live for those who are interested in watching and didn't have an opportunity to register. Your lines will be muted. And if you haven't muted your lines, please mute your lines just so that we can minimize any background noise throughout the webinar. And feel free to use the chat function. I am going to monitor it while I'm speaking tonight. And at the end of the actual presentation, there will be a Q&A session for those who want to stick around and ask some more specific questions. I would encourage each one of you to have paper and pencil available. You may find some golden nuggets through this conversation that you may want to recall. And if you don't take notes, I will plan on sharing this presentation with all those who registered through the Eventbrite. You'll have access to the actual presentation that I'm sharing this evening. So I want to pause and I want to say that this webinar was actually planned for Garfield High School, the football team. So shout out to all the Garfield football players and Coach Tony Killing for requesting that I actually host this webinar. So Tony, if you're out there, can you come off mute and just introduce yourself and give a few opening remarks to your football players and everyone who's joined.
Well, Dr. Christie, we just want to thank you for taking the time to build this program for us. We're all in high school sports, and we just want to, I think you told me the best thing is it's best to catch the younger players as they enter ninth grade to give them a good understanding of what the requirements are at the college level. Because like I tell my players every day, you never know what you're going to develop into. So you want to be prepared as you go down the way. But really, thank you for taking the time and the energy to do this. And I'm proud of my players who had the discipline to sign up for the class and for the coaches who are also up here. And just want to give you a big shout out. And also want to let you guys know that her son is playing D1 football at Norfolk State. He's an outstanding kid, young man, good family. And the information I know she provides will help you. Just hold on to a little bit as you can get. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that, Tony. So again, welcome to all the players, parents, coaches, and just those who are interested in learning more about NCAA eligibility and college planning. So I do want to start with my general disclaimer by saying that this webinar will provide you with general guidance that can help you through high school as you think about playing NCAA collegiate sports. So it does apply generally to most high school students. I do recommend that you still follow your high school policies as it pertains to academic requirements, recruiting practices, and sports involvement. I will not be able to answer specific questions about your specific high school or a particular college you may be interested in attending after you finish high school. Each college has some uniqueness to how they go about applying the NCAA requirements. And so I'm going to be speaking mostly in general terms. And also, I'm going to share a wealth of knowledge from the NCAA Eligibility Center on their requirements tonight. but I want you to, if you don't have their website by the end of this webinar, you should, you'll know exactly where to go and find this information. And I want you to be mindful of that as we move forward and save their website, because their information changes frequently. And so as new things evolve, I want you to go there first to get the most updated information. So if you're planning on playing sports in the fall, and give me a shout out in the chat. I want to hear from some of the athletes. Tell me what grade you're in, and just put me a yes in the chat if you're planning to attend college and hopefully play sports in college. Put me a little note, drop me a little line in the chat. I'm monitoring that because I'm really interested in hearing. So it looks like, yep, I'm getting some yeses. 11th grade, which is a good time to kick in. Let me know what your grade is. And I guess everybody who's attending this webinar tonight is obviously interested in playing collegiate sports. Otherwise, I'm sure I wouldn't have your time tonight. So I do appreciate that. So this is helpful. I see a senior, I see some sophomores, some juniors in the chat. Excellent. Good. 10th graders. I hope there's some 9th graders in here too. Don't be shy if you're in the 9th grade. All right, class of 2022. That means you're a rising senior. Excellent. All right, so I'm happy to see that we have a really good mix. Okay, good. Jarius is a 9th grader. Good. Brian's a 9th grader. So while you're still putting that in the chat, because I am looking at it and it's very helpful, I want to introduce you to what our webinar is about. I really designed this webinar to help scholar athletes, and you're going to hear me refer to all of you as scholar athletes as opposed to student athletes, because you can't just think of yourselves as an athlete, but the scholar part is very important. And this webinar is intentionally designed to educate, equip, and empower you as far as your college admissions process, and making sure that you walk away with valuable information on understanding the NCAA eligibility requirements. I want to share some key steps for scholar athletes that you should be thinking about and you should be taking over the next 1 to 3 or 4 years, depending on what grade you're in. And also there are some nuances to the COVID-19 pandemic that I'm going to touch on as those come up as well. I want this to be interactive. I want you to use the chat if you have a question. I'll try to answer questions as I go along. But in the interest of time, because I do have a lot of information I think is valuable that I really want to cover in the time that I have with you. And so what I will do is make sure that at the end, I'll try to sift back through the chat to make sure that I answer your questions if I don't get to them while I am in the middle of speaking. So great. So it looks like we have a really good mix of students. Some of your names look very familiar. And I'm happy to see some familiar names, and I don't see many faces because I'm on the presentation mode, but I'm happy to see that you've joined. So what I want to talk about tonight, I'm going to do a brief speaker introduction. I want to get a little bit of feel for who's playing sports in college. We'll talk about the 3A model that I'm going to introduce to you, protecting your brand. We'll talk about college planning basics. I have a whole course I do around college admissions, and a whole nother course I do around college funding. So you'll have to tune in to some of my future workshops to get more specifics on those, but I do want to cover some basics with college planning. But where I'm likely to spend the most of my time is on the NCAA eligibility part. And then I want to offer some giveaways as a part of those who attended, registered and attended. And then we'll have a Q&A for those who are able to stick around. So again, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Christie Murray. I've published 2 books, as you can see here, one, College Planning Strategies I Wish Someone Had Told Me, and College Funding Strategies I Wish Someone Had Told Me. And I've been operating in this space for a number of years, working with students to not just get accepted into college, but helping students to be able to graduate debt-free. I wrote the second book after talking to many families saying, hey, Christy, guess what? Awesome, we got into school, but now we got to figure out how to pay for it. And so the second book is really the impetus for, you don't have to take out student loans if you don't have to, and get in debt. What can you do to position yourselves now as early as the 9th grade? If you know you want to go to college and you know you want to play sports, this is the prime time to position yourself so that you don't have to pay for it out of pocket. So I'm going to share some of those experiences with you. I also want to give a shout out to my 2 awesome sons. Some of you may know them. Let me know in the chat if you've seen either one of these young men on the football field. Maybe some of you seniors, maybe some sophomores have, but I have two sons who played sports in Prince William County, where Garfield High School is located. The one on the left, he's currently in college at ODU. He's a junior, mass communication major. He's an entrepreneur. He has his own clothing line now. He's a student and he has a clothing line. So he is absolutely doing multiple things. And like I try to tell young people, you can do multiple things and do multiple things well. So that's a theme you're going to hear throughout this talk. He's been playing sports since he was 7 years old. He started with tackle football. And then my son on the right, he just graduated from Forest Park High School. I'm sure several of you have played against him. He's a safety. He was a safety at Forest Park. Now he is a rising freshman scholar athlete, just like many of you, who he is actually in training now at Norfolk State University with their football program. He'll be home this week, but he's planning to major in computer science, and he is there on a Division I football scholarship. He's been playing football and sports since he was 5 years old. And just to give you a little bit of background, Tony Killing and I go way back. Tony was over my son's youth athletic association, where they played a lot of their sports through. I've been team moms with Tony. I've been on the board with Tony, and I've watched many of you grow up over the years playing sports. And so this all started for me sitting on the sidelines as a parent, interested in my children's development and academically, holistically, athletically, and so forth. And so the work that I'm doing now in these areas really stems from conversations I've had with parents and realizing, wait a minute, y'all don't know this either? I don't know it either. Well, how about we try to find out these things so that we can not just collect this information for ourselves, but share it with other students in addition. So I'm coming to you not just as some lady who wrote 2 books. I'm coming to you as a parent. I'm coming to you as a parent of students who've played in Prince William County, whose kids played in Prince William County, and as someone who's gone through this process recently with a Division I football athlete. So hopefully those things will hit home for you as I share some of my experiences helping my sons and others. I talk nationally and I help families all across the country with this now. So here's one of the key things that I want to ask you. I want to learn more about who you guys are. Some of you already told me the answer to if you're interested in playing sports in college. Let me know in the chat if you already know what sport you want to play. What's your predominant sport? What's the sport of interest for you? If you're going to go to college, let's say in the next year or 2 to 3 years, what sport are you interested in playing? And okay, I see baseball, basketball, football. Okay, a lot of football, I would suspect, since that's really the impetus for this webinar, but we certainly invite all athletes, male and female, to this webinar. So shout out to the females as well who are out here, female scholar athletes. I wanna make sure that I give you a shout out too, because this information doesn't just pertain to males, it pertains to females too. So as we're having these conversations, if you have female friends who are athletes, make sure you pass it on to them or even encourage them to seek out more information. Okay, I see a lot of football. Okay, some people have multiple sports they're interested in, basketball and football, for example. So good, that gives me a really good sense of who's in the room with me. I think that's important for me to kind of wrap my mind around as I'm talking. So let's talk about who's playing sports in general, high school sports. There are nearly 8 million students. Can you believe it? 8 million students playing high school sports. And whoever, I think there's somebody who's not on mute. If everybody could make sure their phone is on mute, and background noise. Thank you. Hold on 1 second. Please mute your lines. Thank you. There are over 8 million students who play high school sports. And about 7% of those high school athletes, 1 in 13, actually go on to play sports in college. Only 7% of high school athletes go on to play sports in college. What happens to the other 93 is the question you should be asking yourself. Now, what I can tell you is when it comes to playing sports in college, Division I and Division II schools or colleges, they give out more than $3.6 billion in athletic scholarships every year to over 180,000 student athletes. It's a lot of money for that 7% or even less who's going to play Division I and Division II sports. So I want to put that in context as you're thinking about it. Many of you guys are all in that 8 million students who are playing in high school. But the question I want you to ask yourself while I'm talking tonight is, how many of y'all are going to be in that 7% going to college to play sports? Something to think about. So as you think about it, let's start with females. If you look at this list, and you don't have to memorize it, I just want to call out in that left column, it shows how many high school females play basketball, lacrosse, field hockey, etc. And then how many of them in the next column to the right go on to play NCAA sports. As you can see, for females, track and field is the sport where there are the most high school females playing or actually running track or participating in track and field. And they also have the most number of NCAA participants out of any sport. So I'm going to provide this chart to you because we're not going to get into a lot of detail on it, but I at least wanted you to see the one with the most. Now, let's pick out the sport with the least number. It would have to be ice hockey. And they actually have the least number of students who were playing it in high school. And then water polo has the least number who are actually playing that sport in college. Very interesting to see the numbers broken down. And if you look at it, as you can see to the right, there's Division I, Division II, and Division III all broken up as well. Let's look at it from a male perspective. Football. So all my football players, shout out to you. There are over 1 million high school football players out there right now. And football is the single largest male sport that students play when they get to college, our student athletes. And so football is a predominant area. Let's see the least number, least sport where there's students. I want to say 22,000 water polo. Water polo is not getting a lot of love, and same with the NCAA participation. Water polo is also the lowest. But as you can see, track and field is high, soccer is high, basketball, baseball. So when you're thinking about playing sports in school, think about where you're going to have the best opportunity and where you have an interest at the same time. So you're probably wondering, why is Miss Christie sharing that with us? Well, I'm sharing with you these stats because I want you to put it into perspective. Every child who enters college or enters high school, for that matter, they think, yeah, I'm going to go on and play sports in high school. I'm going to go on to the NFL or the NBA or WNBA or whatever pro team of your choice. But what if I told you there's a 2% club? And I want you to ask yourself throughout my conversation with you tonight, are you in the 2% or are you in the 98%? Because let me tell you a little bit about this 2% club. This 2% club means that about 2% of all high school athletes get some form of athletic scholarships to compete in college. 2%. 2% of y'all who are going to graduate from high school and go on to play sports in college are going to get athletic scholarships. 2% of y'all who are in high school right now are going to go on to play Division I sports. Now, you can get scholarship money for Division I and Division II sports, so I don't want to tie that together, but for Division I, only 2% of high school athletes play D1 sports. And lastly, about 2% of NCAA student athletes go on to play pro ball or pro sports, become a professional athlete. So 2% getting scholarships, only 2% roughly are getting Division I time or, a scholarship or to play Division I sports. And only 2% of those kids in college are actually going to go on to play professional athletics. I don't share this to demoralize you guys or to speak down. I share it to motivate you. Why do I want to motivate you? Because here's a question I want to ask you. As you're sitting there as a freshman and as a sophomore and as a junior and a rising senior, more urgently and importantly, what will make the difference in your situation that will set you apart to be a part of that 2% club? 2% getting money for scholarships, 2% getting into a D1 school and playing sports there, and 2% from there possibly being able to be in pro a pro sport in the future? I'll tell you what sets you apart. This moves into the next topic. I call it a 3A model for success. And I'm sure others have probably used this, but I pretty much came up with it in my own mind. But I guarantee you these philosophies ring true with all those 2%ers I just described. My son actually is a 2%er. I didn't think about it that way until I put this presentation together. He's on scholarship and he's got 2 of those 3, and he's playing Division I sports. So he's in that 2%er club, and any one of those 3 criteria will get you into that 2%er club. So here's what I want you to think about. What matters? What made the difference between that 2% and the 98%? And I'll tell you, it's 3 key things. Many coaches touch on it, not sure to what extent, but let me be the first to say it the way I'm going to say it tonight. Your attitude, your academics, and your athletics. I call it a 3-legged stool. You ever tried to sit on a seat and you hope that when you sit down and put all your weight on it, that it functions as it was intended to? Well, that's the key to the 3A model. You got to have the right attitude, you got to have the right academics, and the right athletic capability to play, to get into that 2% club I just described. Now, I'm going to tell you like this. Now, I've seen a lot of athletes over the years. I've been team mom on numerous teams. I've helped out with many players, and not everybody shows up the same way. This 3-legged stool, what happens when one of those 3 legs is broken? You ever try to sit on a broke chair? You may not function right. It may lack in performance. The other 2 legs will likely have to try to compensate. You might have to lean to the right just to keep that 3rd leg from making you hit the ground. Or you might have to turn your whole stool into someone to get it repaired. So what happens while your stool is off getting repaired because it's broke, because you're missing one of those 3 A's I talked about? While yours is off getting fixed, people will sit on somebody else's stool. Let that resonate. When your attitude sucks, but you have good athletics and good academics, and nobody wants to deal with you because you're a pain in the neck and you're disrespectful, they're going to move on to the next person and sit on their stool. If you got a great attitude and you're awesome, you're making all the touchdowns on the football field or kicking the most goals in soccer, but your grades are crappy, they're going to go sit on somebody else's stool. So my intent tonight is to talk about all 3 of these legs of the stool. I'm going to start with your attitude, how to protect your brand and see yourself as a brand. Then I'm going to talk about your academics, and we'll talk about the college planning basics. And then we're going to spend some time on the NCAA eligibility overview. So hit me up in the chat if you have any questions, but if not, I'm going to keep rolling. Now, attitude. I put this one first on purpose because I believe that how you see yourself and your mindset will determine everything else that you have going on in your life. It is your attitude is either going to help you or it's going to hinder you. Only you get to decide. You can't blame other people. You can't say it was my teacher's fault, my coach's fault, his plays he ran, he didn't put me in the game enough. No. Your attitude, how hard you're willing to work outside of your practices, in the classroom, at home, being respectful and handling your business, all matters here. You're not the only person on the depth chart. You might stand out in red today, but if one of those legs on your 3-legged stool is out of whack or broken or dysfunctional, somebody is always waiting to get your spot. There's never one quarterback, running back, wide receiver, defensive lineman. There's always someone else waiting to have next. So if you don't have the right attitude, it will show through and you'll be watching from the sidelines or the stands, depending on your situation. Now, here's what I want to tell you. See the eyeballs in both corners? Just as I'm talking about these things, think about this. Somebody is always watching you. You are your brand. You have to manage it carefully. Miss Christie, what do you mean by brand? You get to decide what you want people to know about you. When you leave a room, what do they say about you? He works hard. He's committed. He's focused. He's disciplined. He's respectful, or something different. You get to decide how you show up. How you show up does matter. It matters in school, in person, on paper, online, social media, hint, 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 and on the court, field, or wherever you're playing sports at. You can't just pick and choose which ones you're going to dominate at and be in that 2% club I talked about. You might end up in the 98% or 75% or 25%. But in order to get to that 2% club we talked about, you need to have all those on point all the time. Now, here's the other thing about scholar athletes. You need to have a positive attitude. You need to practice discipline and balance. You can't just be so focused on sports. I'm gonna go lift weights. I'm gonna practice. I'm gonna drink water. I'm gonna beef up in terms of weightlifting. But no, I'm not gonna do my schoolwork. Yeah, I got a bunch of missing assignments. No, I didn't go to class. That's not gonna cut it. You have to have balance. You got to check your attitude. You got to be on point with your grades. And you also have to be on point physically with your athletic capabilities. Here's another big one. You have to be coachable. Now, I will tell you, I've talked to a number of coaches, and I've seen how some young people show up with coaches, arguing, using profanity, disrespectful, not sure why or what about that seems acceptable, but it happens. And let me tell you something about coaches. They don't have the time, the resources, the capacity to deal with less than 2%ers on their football field who have no respect and who they can't teach. You know everything already, then why are you playing the sport? Advance on past that. They're there to help coach you up. And they want to deal with scholar athletes who can listen and say, yes, sir, got it. Yes, coach, and move on and take it for what it's worth. Also, scholar athletes have to be able to set the example. Are you providing leadership? All you seniors and juniors in the chat, even you sophomores, you're going to have some students who are going to come onto your team in a matter of days. Coach Tony, come off mute and let me know when y'all start practicing, for example, for this upcoming football season. Has it started already?
Yeah, we off season, but 29 July, we got a host of new kids already filling in the last 2 days, 2 to 3 days.
So it's about to kick in ASAP. Show up out there coachable. And if you are an upperclassman, set the example. When your coach says, okay, run to the huddle, why are you walking? Why are you slow? Why do you have attitude? You have to be respectful. And lastly, I just want to emphasize this, young people, please learn how to communicate well. I'll talk a little bit more about communication, but your ability to communicate will be essential. Your ultimate goal is to separate yourself from the competition at your school, with your sports program you're in. If you play football with your football players, you want to stand apart against the players and teams you're going to play against this season and the competition you're going to have as you enter college. Set yourself apart. Here's why I wanted to talk about learn to communicate effectively and appropriately. It is never, ever, ever, ever okay for a student to use profanity with a coach, with a teacher, with another adult, with each other. But I get that sometimes that's how y'all talk to each other. But here's the thing, how you show up matters. People are always watching you, and some things you put out into the atmosphere you can't take back. So I think it's important as you think about your brand and how people are going to describe you when you're not around, that you be more conscious of these things. Also, I would encourage all of you right now, whatever grade you're in, when this webinar is over, get with your parents and set up an email address that you're only going to use for college communications. Well, Miss Christie, why I do that? I don't even like checking email. Here's why. Most schools, most coaches are going to send you correspondence via email. They'll text you, hey, buddy, how was your game? Or, hey, I checked you out today. Your stats look good. Or we're coming to your school for an official visit. They may text you that, but when it comes down to them offering you or trying to really communicate with you effectively, they're either going to call you or they're going to email you. And most young people don't check email daily. So create an account that you and your parents have the login to so that they can help you check and y'all can mutually know what's going on. I did this for my sons, and I'll tell you, it was incredibly beneficial because they were able to pay attention. I was able to pay attention, and we didn't let anything slip through the cracks. Please talk to your coaches, your high school coaches, and share your interests. You'd be surprised how many coaches have no idea what students' grades are, what they're interested in, and whether they even want to play sports in college. They can't advocate you if you haven't shared what your interests are. So if you want to play a sport, make sure your coach knows. If you have a particular major or college you're interested in, make sure your coach knows. People can't advocate for you if a school comes to visit and they can't remember, I'm just going to pick on a student. Trey, I remember Trey wanted to go to William and Mary. Oh, so when they come here, let me up-talk these students that I know have an interest in that school. And then here's the other thing. Tell them how they can help you. What do you need help with? The onus is on the student. Coaches are not going to read your mind. They have too many students and too many responsibilities. Advocate for yourself and speak up for what you need. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Find out how your coach in your high school works when it comes down to college recruitment. Every high school may do it a little bit different. Colleges do it differently. Some colleges assign their coaches to a particular region, and those coaches go out and cover all the positions for that region. Find that out. How can I find that out, Ms. Christie? Start by talking to your high school coaches. They generally are the first ones to interface with many of these college representatives who are looking for students and talent. And so they will help you to understand the process if and when you ask. And again, I'm going to go back to manners. I'm going to end with communications with manners. Use the words like please and thank you. Use words like yes, sir, no, ma'am, yes, ma'am, instead of yeah, no. That's not professional. That's not how you manage your brand. It's great when you're casual and you're with your friends, and you may naturally do that because you've done it most of your childhood. But let me be the first to tell you, if nobody else has, it's borderline disrespectful when you can't form a simple yes or a simple no, and it's the same number of syllables as a yeah and a no. What will your coaches say about you behind the scenes? When that college coach comes to visit Garfield High School and they ask about Trey, what's the coach going to say? Now, I've heard this happen with my own 2 ears before. I've heard coaches say extremely positive things, and I've heard coaches keep it real. He late for class. He got a nasty attitude. I can't tell him nothing. He think he knows it all, or she thinks she knows it all. And guess what? They're going to move on to the next person. They're going to say, those college recruiters are going to say, no, that's not a 2%er I want to invite on my team. We don't have time for that nonsense either. So I wouldn't be me if I didn't keep it real with you about that. Why? Because I had the same conversations with my sons. When they would go out and talk to people, please don't use no yeah and or no. It's yes, sir, no, ma'am. You need to turn on those skills and act like you have some home training. That's the mama in me coming out. So I apologize, y'all, but I'm just going to tell you like I feel it. So that's managing your brand, your attitude, your mindset, your willingness to communicate and advocate for yourself are all important. What else is important? Your academics. So next, I want to talk a little bit about the college planning basics. So if you join this webinar tonight thinking that I would tell you that athletics should be your sole focus to get into a Division I or II school to get a scholarship, wrong answer. Athletics alone will not do it. You cannot just focus on your athletic capabilities. I don't care if you're the star quarterback of your team. I don't care if you have the most rushing yards out of every wide receiver, or you kick the most goals on your soccer team, or hit the most bats on baseball. Fantastic. I guarantee you, out of that million of high school athletes, and only 2% going on to play collegiate sports on a Division I basis, they probably can do those things too. So what's going to differentiate you? Your academics, for one. Your academics are just, if not more important than your athletic capabilities. Do you know how many fantastic athletes are not playing football right now, or basketball, or any other sport because of their grades? More than I care to admit. The reason why is because somewhere along the line, they gave up on themselves academically. They didn't practice the self-discipline and the focus they needed to make sure that their academics was just as powerful as their athletics was. That wasn't an option for my son who's playing Division I football now. His whole childhood, it was your academics first. We were not going to sit here and just, invest in you athletically. And then when it's time to go to college, you can't stand up to the test because you first have to be able to get into college. When should you focus on your academics? Early and often. If you are in the 8th grade or the 9th grade, please hear me. Please hear me. You should be very focused on your academics from the start. It is easier to get and keep a 3.0. You should never let your GPA cumulative fall under a 3.0. It's easier to manage it early than to try to play catch up later. You ever played a game? Y'all play sports. You ever been down? You ever put yourself in a situation where you let the other team score 40 points? Now it's 40-0 at halftime. And you're like, I got an uphill battle now to try to get those 40 points back without letting them score again, but also try to get ahead. It's the same with your academics. You can't dig yourself in a hole with a 1.x GPA and spend the next 3 years trying to dig yourself out of a hole easily. While it can be done, if you don't have to position yourself that way, I wouldn't encourage it. Now, if you're a high school junior or a senior, time is of the essence. I want you to think about what I'm going to say next as we talk about NCAA and so forth, really to heart, because you really should be taking notes because there are some things that you need to be doing ASAP. But one of the key messages I want to make sure I share with you is getting NCAA interest or even an offer does not necessarily mean that you're automatically admitted into that college. Wait a minute, Miss Christie. If I get a letter of intent from Duke University, that doesn't mean I'm automatically admitted into the school. No, it does not. If you don't meet their college admissions requirement, they're not going to do nothing for you in terms of an interest letter of intent or expressing a lot of interest. Matter of fact, when my son was looking at different schools and colleges were visiting, one of the first questions they asked his coach, what's his GPA? They didn't ask him how many tackles he had. He plays defense a lot. They didn't ask him about his tackle ratio. They asked him about his GPA. So don't get it twisted. You got to apply to the colleges, get accepted, and then you can look at those opportunities more seriously. You have to not only meet the college admissions requirements, but you also have to meet the NCAA requirements that we're going to talk more about. So when it comes down to college planning, my rising seniors and juniors, all of my athletes on here, keep your grades up. It's not just about keeping them up to play sports in college. You got to get admitted into college. And I never advise students, even those who are going to school on an athletic scholarship, to only focus on athletic scholarships. If you have good grades, please know that you can get all kinds of scholarships to help complement and offset what you may owe to a college or university. You can get merit scholarships for your academics, interest-based scholarships for other groups and organizations or interests you have. So if you position yourself now, you can choose. My son who's in college now, he didn't just get athletic scholarships, he got academic scholarships too. So that's very important. I want you to think of yourself as a whole student and a scholar first, and then the athletic piece is a bonus and a benefit to you. How many of y'all know your current GPA? School year just ended in June. How many of you I know if you go into Naviance in Prince William County, it'll show you your GPA. Okay, somebody got a 4.3. I see you, 3.3. Excellent. And if you don't be embarrassed. Here's what I'll tell you. If you didn't get it right in the past is the past. Stop the bleeding right now and fix it. It's your responsibility to fix it. All right, I'm seeing all over these 3.0s. Great. Keep your GPAs over 3.0, student athletes. Now, if you don't know your GPA and you don't know how to get your official transcript, find out as soon as possible. If you are a high school senior and you are about to start school and you've never ordered a transcript, as soon as your senior year starts, you and your parents need to figure out the process. It's not a one-step process. I've done this twice. One of my sons went to Hilton, one went to Forest Park. Both of their processes were different and they had more than one step to them. So you don't want to wait until it's time for you to send them out to an NCAA for their eligibility or to colleges and say, well, they want me to do this, and this, and my stuff is going to be late. As soon as school starts, write this down, all my students on here. Find out the process to get your high school transcripts. And if you transferred and went to more than one high school, you're gonna need your transcripts for all the schools you've attended. Let me be the first to tell you that. Make sure you become more familiar with the NCAA requirements. Here's a little unknown fact. Most students wait till their senior year to understand the NCAA requirements. Most students who wait till their senior year are behind the curveball and are gonna get shocked because there are requirements, things that you have had to do prior to your senior year. And if you haven't, it's gonna make it difficult for colleges to even talk to you. We'll talk more about that. Strategically determine your courses. Once we look at the NCAA eligibility requirements, you'll know why I'm saying that. But if you are a freshman, you need to make sure you look at how do I meet the graduation requirements and NCAA requirements at the same time. Every one of you, whether you're playing sports or not, should have a college admissions and funding plan. Which colleges am I going to apply to? How much is it going to cost? What are the application fees? How am I going to pay for it? How much does each one of those schools cost? What's the tuition and the cost of attendance? I don't encourage students to pick colleges that they can't afford. And if you do, I encourage students to have at least 5 to 10 colleges on their list so that you can pick some colleges and apply that are on the more affordable end, and some may be more expensive. But the beauty is if you get in all those schools, you can pick which one is going to work best for you from an affordability standpoint. Plan on taking the SAT and ACT. Let me know in the chat if you have taken it or you plan. Just put me a simple yes or no in the chat if you plan on taking the SAT and ACT. Everybody really should be putting in the chat, but let me see who's already got it registered. Okay, somebody said it's done. They took the ACT. Good. All right, Joshua, Justice, excellent. Thank you, Elijah. Now, here's the key thing. If you are a sophomore or junior, you should be scheduling to take those tests. I recommend sophomore and juniors take the test the first time, see how you naturally score, then get in a prep course and retake it and powerhouse it the second time. Now, I do a whole talk about these things in more detail, but I know I don't have time tonight to expand, but every student needs to take the SAT and ACT test for several reasons. One, some colleges are still requiring it, some are not. They call it test optional. Some schools say, hey, we'll admit you into our school, but you don't need to take the SAT test to get admitted. Here's why you still need to take it. Because what they didn't tell students, and I saw this happen a lot this year during COVID, they were like, hoo-hoo, the school didn't require me to take the SAT. But wait a minute, they didn't award me any money, any merit scholarships either. Because what they didn't say to students was, even though you didn't take the test and you didn't need it to get admitted, oh, but we failed to mention that we still use those same test scores as we determine who we're going to give our academic money to. Don't find yourself behind the curveball. Go to the sites, collegeboard.org or act.org, and register and take those tests. If you are a senior and you have not taken it, there are dates coming up in late August and September for both the SAT and ACT tests. Get registered ASAP. Most seniors, you should not wait until late in your senior year to apply to colleges or to take these tests. In fact, I tell all students you should be applying to colleges in the fall of your senior year, not the spring, in the fall, because most colleges give out their financial aid money on a first come, first served basis. Those students who apply in September, October, November, December are going to get first dibs at all the university money. So write that down too. I plan to apply to colleges in the fall. I plan to register for the SAT and ACT tests. Now, as you think about that, start thinking about what you want to major in. Why? Because if you're picking a major and you're picking colleges, but the colleges don't have the major that you're interested in, how's that going to match up for you? So the first thing I would encourage you to do is narrow down which majors you're interested in, which programs, and then start researching colleges for tuition, for requirements, and to make sure they have your program. And don't be afraid to visit colleges, whether you're doing it in person, but many schools have moved towards virtual tours. They have these 3D tour capabilities now where you can get a feel for the college without even leaving your home or your computer. Whichever method works best for you, highly recommend it. And please make sure that you list your top college choices for both athletic and academics. Because if you have, like my son, he had several schools looking at him for football. Well, we added those schools to his list. We said, look, we're going to go ahead and apply for these schools. We don't know how it's going to turn out with the schools offering you, making you an offer or sending you a letter of intent. But we know you've gone out and visited these schools. They've shown mutual interest at the appropriate times. So it makes sense to start tracking those schools on your short list. And as you learn more about their interests, you go ahead in the fall of your senior year and start applying. Also, start thinking about who can write letters of recommendation for you. You're going to need letters of recommendation in two key ways. Most people only think about the first one, and that's with your college applications. Well, what happens when you want to apply for many scholarships, which I highly recommend, and they also want letters of recommendation? It's not the same letter. People who write a letter of recommendation for college applications, they start out, "Dear College of William and Mary, please accept Christie into your college for admissions." Scholarship entity letters don't start out that way. They start out, "I strongly recommend Christie Murray for your scholarship award." So you have to get letters for both cases. If you're in the 9th grade, if you're a rising 9th grader, you know what I would recommend you doing? Keep a little journal, a little book. I keep this little notebook. Let me show it to y'all. I write stuff down every day. I have a little notebook. It's almost full. I need to get a new one. Every day, I jot down my notes, my things to do, things coming up, whatever it is, I write it down. One, I got a bad memory, and two, it's information overload. But if I have it in here, I don't have to keep it in here. But here's the beauty of that. If you're in the 9th grade and you have a teacher or two at the end of this first year, and he's like, "You know what, my English teacher was awesome. Oh, we had a great relationship." Put it in your trusty little college book and get their information. Jot down their email address and their phone number and let them know, "I'm going to come back around, Miss Tucker, and have you write a letter of recommendation for me in the future." And she'll say, "Oh, I'd love to." But you're not going to remember that your senior year. How many of you seniors remember everyone you'd like to write a letter for you? So if you are a senior, take it for action to sit down and come up with 3 to 5 people who could write a letter of recommendation for you. If you are a junior, everybody should be doing that and tracking and saving that each year. Next, I want to encourage you to be prepared to write essays. I highly encourage my seniors to write your essays this summer. Any particular why you can't? Probably sleeping in till it's time to practice football or whatever sport you're playing. And you have more time now this summer than you will when the school year starts, playing sports and doing your academics. And you can go ahead and take that list of colleges you're interested in, seeing which ones, not all of them require essays, but those that do, and have them already drafted this summer. You can't be afraid to write an essay, because with COVID hitting and many schools not looking at SAT tests as much, they're putting a lot of emphasis on their essays. Same with scholarship entities. Many of them are putting a stronger emphasis on how well you're writing your essays. So keep that in mind as well. And if you have not heard of the free application for federal student aid, this is in particular for high school seniors. It opens up October 1st of each year. You and your parents should sit down and complete this application October 1st, October 2nd. Please hear me. If you ever have a chance or have a need for any federal financial aid, you cannot get it without having this FAFSA completed. So I recommend you fill it out and list all the schools that you're interested in applying to so that they can automatically send your results to them. Why does that matter, Miss Christie? Because schools aren't going to tell you how much money they're going to give you without seeing this FAFSA first. They want to see what's your need. How much do they think your family can pay out of pocket first? Oh, okay, we have this on our FAFSA. So we know this about Christie at our university. Now each university can calculate how much money they're willing to give you based on it. If you wait until later in the year, you might get admitted, but you won't know how much money you're going to get until later. And you hope that there's still money left when you do turn around and do it. So I put this on here for a reason. And every last one of you, I don't care if you're the star of your hockey team or lacrosse team or not, every last one of you, unless you're allergic to money, and more important, free money or gift aid, which I use in terms of scholarships and grant, because you don't have to pay it back. It's a gift to you. You should be searching and applying for scholarships, whether it's athletic, merit scholarships, interest-based. There's scholarships for everything you can think of, even by your major. My son applied for STEM scholarships. Why? Because he knew he wanted to major in computer science. That's another reason why you should pick a major early, because you can start to target scholarships just for your major too. And the other thing I would encourage all of you to do is save your username and passwords in an easy place where you and your parents can access it. There were so many online portals. SAT had a password, ACT, every college you apply to, NCAA has a password. You name it, everybody has a password. And unless you're organized and you have all this in one place, you're not going to know what the passwords are when you need them the most. I hope you found that helpful. Now, I know that I'm breezing through the whole college planning piece and not really getting into the nitty gritty, but the details. I wanted to hit the highlights. So as I conclude that section, here's what I want you to remember. Start early. Start early if you are a freshman in high school, staying on top of your academics, thinking about what you want to major in, what colleges you're interested in. And if you're able to start looking and doing research, do it early. If you are a rising junior and senior, schedule, if you haven't, to take the SAT and ACT. If you're a senior and you have that list of colleges, go and find out how much the application fees are. My son applied to 13 schools. Can somebody guess in the chat how much his college application fees totaled up to be? Any brave souls? $2K. Adam said $2K, 600, 300. Adam, you're probably the closest. We spent, no, it wasn't that high. Emmanuel, you're probably the closest. We spent $980 on application fees alone the fall of his senior year. So every last one of you should be working with your parents for a budget. How much are we going to spend our senior year? And here's another important question. How much can we afford to pay for me to go to college? Should I not become one of those 2%ers? Which I'm pretty confident all of you, with this information I'm sharing tonight, we're going to claim it and put it on your spirits that you'll be a part of that 2% club. But in the event, your plan B should be having a conversation with your folks about how you're going to cover those costs. And we did that, and it was very helpful because your parents can plan. And please respect their money and their time as they try to help you by not springing things on them at the last minute. So next, the next important leg we're going to talk about is the athletic leg. We're going to talk about NCAA eligibility and give you an overview. Now, here is the NCAA, and for those who didn't know what it stood for, National Collegiate Athletic Association. It's all about college athletics. Here's a website I mentioned earlier. Please take a screenshot, memorize this website. Any and everything you need to know about your eligibility now and in the future will likely be here, or this will be a great starting point for you to find out the information that you need. So let's talk about eligibility. Those students who leave high school and go on to play collegiate sports, we'll call them scholar athletes. In general, as a group, they graduate at a higher rate from college than any other group of students at colleges. That's very encouraging. So if you actually go on to play, and that 7% who go on to play collegiate sports, you have a higher graduation rate at those colleges than students who are just regularly attending classes. If you are a college-bound scholar athlete, you must meet all of the NCAA approved academic and athletic requirements. Wait a minute, Miss Christie, you mean I just can't be good at throwing? I can throw 100 yards, I can break through tackles, I can drag people with me, I can juke them out and stiff arm or whatever else is going on these days. No, you can do some of those things, but you can't just focus on those things. You have to be able to meet their 16 core course requirements. How many of y'all even knew NCAA had 16 core courses you had to take? Wait a minute, what? Is that different from our high school graduation classes? Yes and no. Most of the NCAA core courses are general classes that you would need to take for high school. But if you're not careful, and some of the electives you choose, they may not meet NCAA guidelines. So I'm bringing this up to you to tell you that there are 16 core courses that the NCAA uses to determine your eligibility. They give you types of courses, types of math, types of English, types of science, types of social science in categories. And if you're not careful, you could hit your senior year and not have taken some classes that you need to become eligible. That's why I tell you, as a freshman, the more familiar you get with these things, the better position you'll be. You also have to complete an amateurism standard. And amateurism really just simply means the NCAA wants to make sure that you are an amateur. You're not getting paid to perform athletically. You're not getting any kickbacks or anyone padding your pockets with money, or you're not playing professionally or in ways in which it conflicts with their requirements. That's simply what it means. They also have a GPA and an SAT and ACT requirement. Here's that academic thing again, Ms. Christie was talking about. It requires you to know what your GPA is. If I ask you at any point, it should be like your social security number, your birthday. Kyle, what's your GPA? Kyle should be able to say. Now, we'll talk about the sliding scale, because one of the things I did find interesting working with my sons is if you have a high GPA, NCAA is willing to accept a lower SAT score. If you don't have a higher GPA, you have a low GPA, that means you have to have stronger SAT and ACT scores. It's a sliding scale. So the higher one is, the lowest the other, but they both can't be low. They can both be high, but they can't both be low in the same category, GPA and SAT scores. So please be mindful of that. And then of course, if you want to play collegiate sports, it requires that you actually graduate from high school. To me, that's pretty self-explanatory. But here's the thing, with COVID, and I want to stress this, they have made some adjustments to their eligibility certification. So if you're playing sports, let's say if you're going to college this fall, like my son is in 2021, 2022, and you're enrolling full-time in college, their COVID waiver requirements applies to you, but they're also extending it for the 2022, 2023 year. So seniors, listen up to that part. So the seniors this year will also have some of their initial eligibility processes changing this year. My keynote is that you cannot wait until your senior year to make sure you understand the requirements. Now, there's 3 different divisions. I think some of you may know this already. Division I, which is really the elite, that's the 2%er club I talked about. They enroll the most athletes, most students. They have the largest budgets, athletic budgets. They probably give out the most money, scholarship money, and they offer a variety of different academic programs, and they definitely give out the most scholarships, which I mentioned. Division II, they provide growth opportunities and through academic achievement. They still play at a high level of competition with various sports, and they certainly offer a focus on community engagement. They still give out scholarship money, maybe not as much as Division I, but they do, and Division II schools give out scholarships. And then Division III, those students who go on to play Division III sports, they still get acclimated into an integrated environment focused on academic success. They have competitive sports still. They have limited scholarships though, especially athletic scholarships. Now they give out other college or university financial aid, but they don't give out a lot of NCAA scholarships at all. In fact, if you are interested or if you find yourself playing Division III sports, you don't even need to register for eligibility with the NCAA Eligibility Center. You can still create a profile there, but it's not required that you register. Now, if you're playing Division I or II, here's a few things you need to know. You must certify, and I stress certify, with NCAA Eligibility Center. You mean, Ms. Christie, they don't just know I'm a great athlete and know that I'm gonna play Division I and the school colleges are gonna look for me? No, they don't. Nice, but no. I'm sure you're awesome, but they don't. You have to compete. If you wanna compete at a Division I or Division II, 1 or 2 school, you have to meet their amateurism standards, which I talked about, and their academic standards. You have to create a certification account. Go to the website listed below. If you are a senior and you don't have one tonight, go to this eligibilitycenter.org site and create your certification account. If colleges are going to make official visits and inquire about you, or ask or provide you with a letter of intent, you better be in that system or they're not going to look twice at you. Why? Because they need to know that your grades are on point, the amateurism standards are in place, and you've classified. And in a minute, I'll talk about the NCAA ID. Every scholar athlete has an NCAA ID number. Matter of fact, when my son was going on visits, he had coaches asking him, what's your NCAA ID number? He was like rattling it off because we did it his sophomore year. So if you're a freshman or sophomore, you can actually create your profile early. I highly recommend you do it early while you're in high school. Don't wait till your senior year. And it only takes about 30 minutes or less to fill out those required sections. When you go to it, it'll let you register. In fact, they recommend that you register with the Eligibility Center before your sophomore year. So there's a rhyme and reason to what I'm saying. And you have to select each sport you want to play. I can't remember who it was in the chat, but somebody said they wanted to play basketball and football, where you have to click and select each one of those sports, not just one or the other. And they're not going to assume they know. Please don't make any assumptions about what they know. They'll only know what you put in there. And you'll complete and update your sports participation section. They'll ask you some key questions and you will walk through those steps. If you are a senior and you're interested in playing D1 or D2 sports, your senior year, you'll have to request final amateurism certification. And then they'll confirm those things before your senior year is up to make sure you've met all the requirements to play Division I and Division II sports. So they have a lot of resources on that website for you to leverage, but I want to introduce you to some of the basics tonight. So what they'll do is once you complete your eligibility profile, they'll review it. The Eligibility Center, they're going to review your sports participation history, determine whether they are giving you amateurism status. They'll ask you questions like, have you ever been paid to play sports? And you have to answer yes or no. Hopefully the answer is no to most of those. And what they really want to do is they want to make sure that you haven't received payment for sports, particularly as you're entering to become an initial Division I or Division II athlete. So what do you need as you're going to set up this account? Email address. Oh, wait, this is a perfect opportunity to use that email address I told you to create earlier. Great. Your birthday, address, contact information on your high school, sports, if you participated in sports, if you have any awards, individuals who advise you. So if you have people who are advising you or marketing you, that's a red flag to the NCAA Eligibility Center. They want to make sure that you are an amateur with initial entry as you become a Division I or Division II athlete. Now, I will tell you, it's not free. It is a one-time fee. It was $80. If you live in the US and Canada, it was $80 3-4 years ago when my sons did it. Now it's $90 if you live in the US. It's $150 if you're an international student. But here's the key, and I listed it here in red. You will receive an NCAA ID number when you set up this account. Save it in your phone, tattoo it, not real tattoo, but ink it in somewhere, provide it to your parents and give it to your coaches. And here's why, because every time that they're going to do business on your behalf, or you're going to do business and talk to coaches from colleges, they're going to want that information. And you don't have time to be like, oh, wait, let me try to figure out where I put my password to get into my Eligibility Center site to figure this out just to get my ID. Nobody has time for that. Save your password, save your NCAA ID, and save yourself a lot of heartache, and them too. Now, I'm actually showing you some things. Remember I told you my sons did it earlier. When you go in and you create your profile, this is actually a snapshot into my sons. It creates a task list for you. For each year, you have actions you have to complete. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but it turns green over to the left when you've completed those. It'll tell you the date they assigned it. Whether there's something where you have to complete required information regarding initial eligibility, ban drugs, and sports wagering. So you have to complete all these sections. You'll see here, transcripts needed, final amateurism. And you see that listed here 3 times because my son listed football, basketball, and track, 3 different sports. And each sport requires you to fill out a final amateurism certification as you get ready to graduate. And you see the transcript on line 3, and then the last line, official final transcript. He graduated from school. Guess what? We had to send his final transcript his senior year. So seniors, you have to do that as you're graduating this year. If you're thinking about Division III, or you're undecided right now, if you're going to play sports or Division I or II, I would still encourage you to complete a profile through the Eligibility Center. It doesn't get as in-depth as the certification side of it does, but the profile, it'll give you your username and ID. You'll get an NCAA ID number. You'll still be able to set up, they'll send you reminders as you're going through high school on things you need to do. And if you ever decide you want to switch it over and fully get certified, it's a very easy transition to the certification account. So I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that requirement for Division III. So next, I want to talk about what are some of their general requirements. A, you have to graduate from high school. B, you have to have those 16 core courses that are approved by NCAA. And then you have to have the minimum GPA. If you plan on playing Division I sports, you got to have at least a 2.3. And I love that little saying over to the right, 2.3 or take a knee. Sit down somewhere if you can't get it together academically, but you want to play sports athletically. Strengthen your academics and circle back around once you've done so. Also, Division II, 2.2 is the minimum GPA. So you must qualify, and here's another thing I want you to remember, you must qualify for each sport you're interested in, football, basketball, baseball, whatever your situation, you have to qualify. And then the SAT and ACT tests are based on that sliding scale I talked about. Let me fast forward to, I thought I had a slide in there that showed it. Here it is. As you see, the higher your GPA, this person had like a 3.5, you only needed a 400 SAT or 3,700 on the 37 on the ACT total. But guess what? The lower your GPA, this person with a 2.8, look how high their SAT had to be, a 690. Look how high their ACT summarized score had to be, a 56. So that's what I mean by a sliding scale. The higher your GPA, the lower your SAT or ACT test, and vice versa. So I wanted to talk about that while I was on that particular topic. So I want to go back and talk for the high school seniors class of 2022, and you're thinking about playing sports, let's say the fall of 2022, 2023 academic year, they do have automatic waiver criteria. What you can do is you can qualify for Division I and Division II sports. You still have to have the core 16 courses. They didn't waive that part. They didn't waive the GPA. You still have to have a 2.3 for Division I and a 2.2 for Division II, and you still have to graduate. So what changed, Miss Christie? You don't see SAT anywhere on this chart. They didn't require SAT scores for this current year of students or rising seniors. You get one more year, I think, and it may change even after that. But right now, this is their current information. They're not requiring SAT scores. But what is Miss Christie's advice? Take the SAT and the ACT anyway, because you don't know how those could benefit you in other ways. And if you're going to get admitted into those schools, the school may require you to have them, but the NCAA might not. And you need to know those things up front. But you're better safe by having those scores, even if they don't use it for your NCAA eligibility. Something else I want to bring to your attention. This is actually someone I know, their grades. But here's how it looks when you go into the NCAA system. They have what they call, to determine your initial eligibility, they call this the 10-7. They look at 10 of those core courses in through your first 7 semesters of high school. Really, that's like at the end of your junior year, going into your senior year. And they look at those key courses, Spanish, English, math, science, history, science, etc., in those core courses, and they ask you for your transcript so that they can calculate, okay, this person got an AB, whatever. It looks like they're doing pretty good. Then you go to the division units. So if you have an A, they say these are all 1 unit courses. And if you have an A, they assign a 4. If you have a B, they assign a 3. They total up all these quality points, and that's 35 over 10 units. And they divide 35 by 10, and they get your NCAA GPA. Wait a minute, Miss Christie. They're not going to look at my overall high school cumulative GPA as they're determining my GPA for NCAA? No. This was a big area that I was surprised to see. They don't determine your eligibility based on all the classes you've taken in high school and your GPA. They plug in your 16 core courses, and then they're going to calculate your GPA from those 16 core courses. Now, as you move on down to the second section, as my son hit his senior year, they'll ask the question, final qualifier. Did he meet this 10-7 above initially? Yep, he did. He had a 3.5, so that met it. But then also they want to say, well, did he finish all 16 of those core courses? Sure, he did. And that totaled up to 15 quality points because they had A's in some classes, B's in some, maybe a C or D periodically. But they're going to divide 50 by 16, and that's going to tell them what your NCAA GPA is. So while my son might have had a 3.6, or whoever the student is, spill the beans, 3.5 in this area, when they looked at those core courses that were of interest to them, he still met it with a 3.1. So as you can see, as of November of 2020, they decided that he was automatic waiver approved during this COVID pandemic. He was good to go academically. So I shared that with you because I want you to know how those things are calculated and not be surprised when they say you fall short of the 2.3 or you're way above it. That's more your reality, I hope. But here's the key thing. As we talk about final non-qualifier preliminary review, NCAA is going to show you your status for Division I and Division II. They'll let you know if you're a final non-qualifier, which is a good thing. As you can see here, automatic waiver approved. This was my son's, he was approved. And earlier he was considered preliminary reviewed. And so as you turn in more grades and they hit your senior year, here's how it looked. This is his actually as he graduated from high school. Each one of the sports, remember I said you have to list the sports out, basketball, football, track. For Division I, amateur status, certified, final non-qualifier, he's approved with the automatic waiver. For basketball, approved. For football, approved. For track. And same with Division II. He was interested in Division I, but you see both listed here. That's what you want to see in your status when you log into the NCAA eligibility. Now, again, we talked about the sliding scale with the SAT. If you take the SAT, you may not have to this upcoming year senior send your scores to the NCAA Eligibility Center, but some of you underclassmen, juniors, sophomores, freshmen, generally in past situations, you would have to do this. And I suspect in the future, you still may have to do it moving forward. So still plan on taking those tests. And even though it's not required right now, I highly recommend that you take them for both admissions purposes and for other scholarships. So what should you be doing your 9th grade year? Getting a list of your high school core courses, making sure you're about to take the right classes, keeping your grades up, signing up for the Eligibility Center, both the 9th and 10th grade, and getting your NCAA ID. As you hit your junior year, you should be making sure that you're on track to graduate with the courses you need. You're taking the SAT and ACT tests, submitting your transcripts. At the end of your junior year, you're going to need to submit official transcripts to the NCAA Eligibility Center. And you're going to need to complete your academic questions and your amateurism questions as well. And then seniors, you should be asking your high schools to also send your transcripts. If you haven't had them sent already, seniors, to initially qualify, soon as school, as soon as they're back from summer vacation, I promise you, you're gonna wanna have this done as soon as possible. You're going to need to complete your final amateurism questions. It's just when you log into the NCAA Eligibility Center, they're going to have a place for you to complete your final amateurism, and walk through the prompts and answer the questions. And know that when you graduate from high school, don't just graduate, collect all your graduation money, go to beach week, and haha, you're all set. Remember to get your final official transcripts and send those off to NCAA as well, and to the college that you'll be attending that you decided on. And here's what I found out this summer. My son went to school early for his college early to start some football training. You know, the first thing they did before they talked anything about a cleat or a uniform or anything practice related, they made sure all his NCAA stuff was in. Did you send your transcripts? Where's your NCAA number? They verified all of his NCAA requirements were met. And most colleges have their own NCAA compliance officer or department, and they're not going to jeopardize their status with NCAA with one athlete. So if you're on top of your job, it makes it easier for them to be able to just check those boxes. NCAA does have a transcript release form on their website. I found this helpful with my sons. We were able to fill this out. You see that NCAA ID number on it? Look at there. You see how these things come together. I took it to his high school and gave it to his school counseling department who handles transcripts, and they were able to help get this sent off to NCAA. They should have a process. When you go to your school counseling office, they should have a process for how that should work. All right, so now we're going to transition and talk about NCAA requirements. What are some of the rules? This is where a lot of students have questions, and for good reason, because if you're not doing, it's a dance, I think, kind of like a tango or something, where if you're stepping on toes, it could really be problematic, and we don't want to have that happen. So let's talk about recruitment. Recruitment is when a college representative or employee reaches out and invites a student to play sports at their college, or they show an interest in you playing sport at their college. They may call you, they may have face-to-face contact, they may meet you in person, invite you out for a camp or something. They may text you, they may mail things to your home, email you and your parents, or they may reach out on social media. They follow you on social media, going back to that branding conversation. You don't want to be posting random, risque nonsense on your social media pages from here on out. Watch your profanity. Watch the stuff that you like when people getting hurt and things you're finding funny. You don't know who's watching you out there. And they're certainly out there looking to see if your character matches up with their culture at their college or university. So just be careful with that. But basically, that's what recruiting is. They're reaching out with the expressed intent of possibly having you come play sports at their college. When a college coach says more than just hello to you, that is considered making contact. If they start to ask you, well, how are your grades? Well, how did your team perform? Anything more than just a hello means they're making contact. And there's rules about when coaches in college can make contact with you and when they cannot. We'll talk about that. So there are two things in terms of college visits. Official visit. You ever heard of them say, well, there's an official visit, or, oh, no, it was just an unofficial visit. Well, let me tell you the difference. An official visit is if the college covers your costs to show up to their campus, whether it's transportation, lodging, 3 meals, maybe up to 3 home game tickets. That's really the max they can really offer, maybe some mild entertainment, but that's really generally it. But if the college pays for it, oh, it's official. If you're paying for it, not so official. So if you and your parents are covering the cost, you still go visit, but you are covering the cost yourself, you're visiting, but it's an unofficial visit. So important to know the distinction. So as you're thinking about making contact, if a coach is saying more than hello, or they're reaching out and trying to talk to you, please know that there are certain times of the year where they are limited and possibly even prohibited from contacting recruits throughout the year. I color coordinated them in terms of green being the most open to red being don't do it, please don't do it. During the contact period, coaches can talk to you face to face. They can come out and watch your games. They can visit your high school and maybe, do a meet and greet there. They can write you, text you, phone you or your parents. They can it's pretty much open. There's a contact period. They can make contact in various means. Now, if it says, oh, it's just an evaluation period, they can watch you play. They can visit your high school, and they can even call you. But here's what they cannot do. They cannot have face-to-face contact with the students or the parents. No face-to-face contact. During the quiet period, the college coaches may not be able to have any face-to-face contact with you or your parents, or they can't watch any games or competitions. They can't visit your high school, but they can text you, write you, and call you. So it's really, they can just over the phone or electronically, but they can't come out and watch your games. They can't make face-to-face, and they can't visit your high school during the quiet period. And then dead is just that. No contact, no visits. Don't call, don't watch, don't email, don't text the student or the parent. And so it's very important to know the distinction between those. Now, as I thought I had a slide. I don't think I did, but the key thing here is there are different periods when they can reach you and when they can't. And if you go to the NCAA, I listed a link here. If you click on this link, it'll take you to their calendar, and it'll tell you when you're in the contact period, when you're in a dead period, the colleges are in a quiet period. Highly recommend you saving that link and referencing it, because there are different times for different reasons they can and cannot contact you. Now, what happens if it's a great synergy between you and the college, and they decide, hey, I'm going to pick on a student, Emmanuel, we want him to play sports at our college, and we're going to send him a national letter of intent, and an NLI. I'm going to refer to it as an NLI. It's a binding agreement between you, the student athlete, and that college. It is not an agreement between you and a coach. A coach does not agree. The university or college has to agree. You have to agree to attend, and the college has to agree to give you financial aid for one academic year. And I stress one. So you can only sign an NLA, a national letter of intent, if you are enrolling for the first time at a 4-year institution, or if you're transitioning from a 2-year institution like a junior college or community college, and you're transferring to a 4-year. That's why I call it a 2-4. Those are the only times you can get a letter of intent. Somebody said, well, Miss Christie, what if I was playing at William and Mary and then I decided I wanted to go to Virginia Tech? Can Virginia Tech issue me a national letter of intent once I started playing at William and Mary? No, they cannot. A 4-year school to a 4-year school, if you transition between 4-year schools, you cannot, by their requirements, get a letter of intent. Here's something else. You can only sign one letter of intent annually, and you can only sign it for one sport. So if you like basketball, football, track, lacrosse, and you're like, oh, which is going to be my predominant sport, you better pick. If you get multiple offers, you can only sign for one. You can't commit to 2 different sports at the same time. And you can't sign a letter of intent if you're planning to walk on and you're not on scholarship. Letters of intent is a binding agreement saying that college wants you to play there and they're going to give you financial assistance. So if you're a walk-on, you will not be getting a letter of intent. For a letter of intent to be considered valid, it has to be accompanied by the financial aid award letter. So it can't just be a letter saying, Christie, come play at our school, and there's no financial letter, award letter attached to it. Once you sign it, then all other institutions, all other colleges have to stop contacting you and your family. Wait a minute, I signed with Norfolk State. Does that mean if Virginia Tech calls me, I can't chat with them. You cannot, because you've already committed to Norfolk State. And I'm just using these as random examples. You can sign a letter of intent before you receive your final certification from NCAA. So once you get into the NCAA system and create your certification profile and get your NCAA number, they will allow you to get a letter of intent with the agreement that you're going to comply and meet all the requirements to become eligible. Your letter of intent could come in the mail, it could come email to you, FedEx to you, but at no time can a college coach hand deliver you a letter of intent. And that letter of intent better come with the letter and the offer for financial athletic aid at the same time. One without the other is null and void. You have to follow the college's instructions, not your high school coaches, but pay attention to the college's instructions on how to sign it and how to return it. And keep a copy. Usually when my son did his, we had 2 copies. He signed 2 copies. He sent one back to the university and he kept one for his personal records. Never give anybody your only copy of anything in all of this college planning work, but especially when you're dealing with money matters. Also, it's important that you know that you don't have to sign a letter of intent. You're not required to, but many athletes sign because they want the certainty of knowing that I at least have one school who's really interested in offering me money. And let me tell you, it was important that my son did during COVID, because I hate to say his class of 2020 and 2021 caught a raw deal in terms of collegiate sports, because they were many colleges were backed up because they had athletes there who had eligibility. And when their class came around, they just didn't have the bandwidth in a lot of cases. And so my son signed his letter of intent and locked it in. And I'm glad he did, because a lot of students, phenomenal athletes who are certainly 2%ers, weren't able to play because a lot of colleges didn't have the room on their depth chart for all the additional players, or they deferred them for later. So I would encourage that you take that serious when you do have those letters of national letters of intent. Colleges must notify the athlete each year. If you get a letter of intent for your first academic year, please have an expectation that your college has to notify you each year, letting you know whether your athletic aid is going to be renewed. They have to do that by their requirements. You may sign your letter of intent only during the designated signing periods. Yes, there's a designated signing period when you can sign a letter of intent. There are periods when you cannot. Colleges shouldn't be offering it and you can't sign it. If you sign it outside of the appropriate window and period, it's considered invalid. They're not going to have it. Within the signing period, you and your parent has to sign it if you're under the age of 21. So even if you're 18, there's some things you don't need a parent signature for when you hit 18. This wasn't one of them. You and your parent or legal guardian has to sign it, and you have to submit it back within 7 days of the date that's on your issuance of that national letter of intent. And we talked about the 2 copies. And then once you get it back to the college, they only have 14 days to get it back to NCAA and to their conference. Otherwise, it's considered valid from the college perspective. So very important pieces that you need to know as you're thinking about letters of intent. Now, if you want to find out the specific signing periods, I listed the website here. And again, I'm going to make these slides available to everyone, but make sure you know when those periods are. I'll give you a snapshot. This was the one for 2021, 2022 that affected my son. And as you can see, August 1st, we're in that window now. Like in each sport is listed. Some sports are combined at the bottom, but like basketball, right now we're in that letter of intent period. From April, initial signing date is April. The final signing date is August. But if you notice, every sport, August 1st is the last date you'll see colleges giving out letters of intent. August 1st this year. This applied to my son. He actually signed when it opened up on February 3rd, which was National Signing Date this year. He actually opened up and he did a signing And he signed his that day, the first day that the season opened up for signing period. I thought I had another slide there. I guess I didn't. But if you click at the bottom, there are dates for 2022, 2023 athletes. So it says click here to view future signing dates. So high school seniors, I would encourage you to go and know what those windows are for you so that you stay and operate within them. And coaches too, make sure that you guide your players so that they are staying in those windows. So there's nothing that keeps you from receiving a letter of intent while you're on campus. Let's say you're at an official or unofficial visit, paid or unpaid visit, and they say, hey, Christie, we want to give you this letter of intent while you're here. You can do that as long as it's within that signing period still. It still has to be within those required signing periods. But if you're on campus during that period, you can sign it. And you can only sign it during those periods. And a college coach cannot deliver it to you in person. And they definitely can't present it to you if you're off campus. They can give it to you if you're on campus, but they can never deliver it to you if you're off campus. And they cannot be present while you sign it. So let me say that again. If you're at an official visit and you're on their campus, a coach can give it to you and you can sign it during the designated period. Outside of that, they can't come to your school. They can't come to your signing. They can't give it to you off campus for you to sign. You'll get in trouble. They'll get in trouble. So how many of you have heard of a verbal commitment? Hopefully you have. This is simply, it's non-binding, so it's not an official agreement, but it's basically you just publicly saying, I intend to go to your college. It's an oral agreement between you and the school. You can verbally commit to one college, and then if you decide, yeah, no, I know I verbally committed to Virginia Tech, but I really want to go to UVA, you can sign a national letter of intent to go to UVA because you didn't sign anything with the first school. Also, colleges can do the same to you. They might accept your verbal commitment, but then they might say, you know what, we like this other DB because he has a better attitude or his grades are better. And so they may offer it to the next DB, a letter of intent instead of you. So it works both ways. But here's what I want you to know. Even if you sign a letter of intent, you cannot talk to other schools while you have the letter of intent in progress unless you log into the NCAA Eligibility Center first and initiate a request for release, national letter of intent release. Once you've submitted your request for release, you can talk to other coaches while your release is pending a decision. And if the college's decision is up to that college who initially gave you that letter of intent to decide whether they want to let you out of your agreement or not. Well, Ms. Christie, what if I really don't want to play there and they don't let me out? Then there is an appeal process in place if the college doesn't approve. And so you'll have to take the next step and work to get it appealed to see if they'll let you out. I hope that helps. So I have shared a lot of information. I hope that you all found it to be useful. And as I conclude and we move into a phase where we can do some Q&A, and I can get out of presentation mode here soon, I want to share a few things with you. Start early and position yourself well. Remember those 3 A's: attitude, academics, athletics, your 3-legged stool. Have some balance and focus on those things that are important. Many of you are already athletically inclined, and it's a matter of making sure that you have balance in those other areas, because how you show up, it does matter. One of the things that I think about that helped my son, he was extremely coachable. He had a fantastic attitude when it comes to most things. He was absolutely fantastic to raise. His attitude was so good. I didn't have any major teenage issues with him, even at home, but his attitude made a difference. And I'll tell you, people are busy. They don't have time to fool with people with nasty attitudes. Don't let that be your reality. You want people to work with you. Get organized early, have a plan, reach out to me if you don't, or if you'd like to attend some of my other events, because they will certainly help you to refine your approach, whether you go Division I or Division II, you play sports or you don't. The things that I will share to you is that you can still find money to go to college, even if it's not athletic money. So don't just rely on athletic scholarships. Many of you I saw in the chat with those phenomenal GPAs don't have to rely on athletic scholarships. And in fact, I don't encourage you to solely rely on them. My son didn't, and I wouldn't encourage that for any child who doesn't have all their tuition already paid for or the money set aside for it. Respect the NCAA eligibility process and their rules, their dead periods, their contact periods, their periods when you can sign and when you can't sign, what you can do on campus and off. If you start violating those rules, you're going to exclude yourself from eligibility before you have an opportunity to fully see where it could take you. Leverage their website. They have the most accurate and complete information. And let me just end with marketing yourself. You know, people might ask me, well, Christie, how did your son do it? You know, how did coaches find him? He marketed himself. He had his social media set up. He had an email address. He had coaches that he had great relationships with who advocated for him, whether they were, you know, youth coaches that, you know, worked with him over the years or his high school coach. All of them can be advocates for you. Tell them what you need. Ask them how they can help. Make sure you know those processes and let others in your community who also have the opportunity to interface, make sure that you let them know what you're interested in doing and using those as opportunities to market yourself. So that's really the essence of what I wanted to share. So as I move into the next phase, and don't leave yet, I hope you don't leave yet. I do have some giveaways, but I am interested in your feedback. If you thought this was useful, helpful, or even if you didn't think it was, put your phone up, use the QR code, scan it, and it's a quick, easy survey. Give me some feedback, give Coach Tony some feedback so we can figure out how to help other students at Garfield, Prince William County, and even nationally. I want to make sure that scholar athletes get what they need. So if there's things that we can do to improve, please share your feedback. I'm also going to, let's see if I can do this. I did not save the link, but I'm going to put the link to the survey in the chat so that each one of you, if you want to just click on it, surveymonkey.com, click on it and give us your feedback. I would greatly appreciate it. It won't take long, and it'll let me know if it, you know, certainly helped you and what you needed to get out of this particular session. Hope that link works. Let me know if it doesn't work because I hand typed it in. Now, giveaways. I have 2 books. I have a college planning strategies book and a college funding strategies book that I'm going to give away. So I'm going to give away multiple sets. Okay, thank you, JW, for letting me know that link works. Multiple sets. First of all, I want a student to put in the chat, and the first student who does will get the first giveaway. And I haven't announced what it is, but I want you to put in the chat yet because I want to be fair. But I want you to, the first student to list out all three A's in the 3-legged stool. The first student to type in all 3 and get them correctly. They don't have to be in the right order, but you have to have all 3 of those 3 items on the 3-legged stool. Okay, Kyle. Okay, Kyle Beer, excellent. Attitude, athletics, and academics. So you are absolutely the first winner. So you will be gifted a copy of my college planning book and workbook. There's a workbook for students. I provide templates in mine and electronic tools for you to download some things and you don't have to start from scratch. Who was that? Elijah said I was first. Did I miss you, Elijah? Hold on, let me see. Let me go back up a little bit. Elijah said he was first. Oh, my bad. So you're right, Elijah. Hold on, it was going too fast. So because I did that and I called out Kyle, I'm gonna give both of you one. So thank you, Elijah, for keeping me honest. I will make sure both of you get copies of that book. Now I'm gonna give away the college funding strategies book and workbook. Somebody said they rushed. All right, so here we go. Next question. Name the 4 periods in which a college coach can contact a student and when they can. Not in any particular order, but what were the 4 periods? First one to put it in the chat. I'll try to watch it this time. Okay, Jarius. Okay, I see you. Jarius Jones. Let's see. Let me make sure I write down your name. And I hope you guys provided me your address and email when you registered, because I'm going to go to that list first. But you're right. It's the contact, evaluate, quiet, and dead period. So excellent job, Jarius, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. College funding book and workbook.
And I'm going to give a freshman.
Say that again.
He's an incoming freshman.
Okay, you're on top of it. All right. I look forward to hearing how you guys evolve over the next 4 years with all this great knowledge you're now kicking. All right. So last question. I'm going to give out another college funding book and workbook. Let's see what I can ask. I'm having a lapse from all the stuff I've talked about. Okay. Here's a good question. True or false? It's going to be easy. A college coach can give you your letter of intent off campus. All right, DeMonte, hold on, let me go back up. It's false. All of y'all got it right. Excellent. I'm gonna have to give away some more giveaways because I like this part. DeMonte, what's your last name? Diamante, if I'm pronouncing it right. What's your last name? I can't hear you.
It's Ferrafino.
Ferrafino?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sweetheart.
No problem.
All right, so trying to find my mouse on here. Okay, here we go. Let me go back to the bottom. Okay, I found it. Okay, I didn't see it. My mouse didn't get me back to the end. All right, excellent. Let me do one more giveaway. Are there any females? This is for females only. If I have females in the room, let me give them a little bit of opportunity. Let's see, true or false? An official visit is when you pay to go visit a college. Okay, Kay Usher, are you a female? I can't tell by just your initial. Okay, what's your first name, Kay Usher?
Katrina, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Katrina Usher. Congratulations. I'll get you the college planning book and workbook.
Okay, I'm sitting in for my daughter. She's actually my 2 daughters are high school students, so I'm in for this. So thank you.
Okay, great. So I like to get parents involved. So I'm glad we had some parents and fill out the survey so we can hear how this was helpful from a parental standpoint too. But thank you all so much for participating in the giveaway. I do want to introduce, if you think this was powerful, I am hosting a free live event. It's a virtual event. It's called the Youth College Excellence Summit on August 14th and 15th. And it's going to be powerful. I'm going to talk more about the college planning and admissions process. We're going to hear from funding experts, scholarship experts. We have a career panel of different individuals with powerhouse professions so the students can ask questions so they can learn more about different professions. We're going to have some NCAA scholar athletes on a panel. One young man who plays football at Harvard, and he talks about how easy it was to get into Harvard University and what's life like on campus. We have current college students who are going to be joining us on panels and young entrepreneurs. So here's the link to the summit here, and I will also provide it to you, but I really want to encourage you all to sign up for my free summit coming up. And I think it will be a powerful event, and you won't walk away the same once you have attended it. If you thought this session was good, wait till you get to the Youth College Excellence Summit. I'm putting it in the chat, the link to that one too. All right, so I also have some other events. I talked about essay writing. My sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, is a part of our #KEP program, College Admissions Planning Program. We're offering 3 webinars this summer. And let me tell you, rising seniors and juniors, I think you should sign up. We're going to give some powerful tips this upcoming Sunday on how to write letters, how to write essays and how to get letters of recommendation. And as you're starting to apply for colleges in the fall, you really should be thinking about powerful and compelling essays. It's free. We also have an SAT prep coming up for those who will be taking the SAT later in August, and an ACT prep coming up for those who will be taking it in early September. So we're doing a lot of things as a community service to reach out to youth in our area, and it's virtual, so no reason why you don't attend. Also, follow me on YouTube. I have my Invest in Others channel. I keep a lot of video content there for you to take advantage of. And please, I know most of y'all aren't on Facebook, the young folks. Parents, if you are, follow me on Facebook. But if you are on TikTok, young people, I post videos daily on TikTok and my Instagram and my Twitter accounts. So please certainly take advantage. And if you didn't get the books that you needed in the giveaway, please know that they are available on my website at www.investinothers.com. Excellent. And some of the websites that I talked about within my presentation, I just listed some of those here as a reference when you get the slide deck. I'm going to try to send the slide deck out to everybody tonight. And so with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I would love to see some live faces if I can get y'all to show your faces. I haven't been able to see y'all. I would love to see some faces. If you're looking decent enough to do so. Most of y'all don't have hair issues. If you're males, some of y'all males do, some of y'all females don't. But show me your faces. Hey, Emmanuel, I saw you commenting. Good to see your face. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Anjali. I saw your face briefly. Justice. Excellent. Mr. Sledge. All right, I saw you commenting. All right, Katrina. All right, I see y'all. This is excellent. So any questions? Go ahead and let me pull up my chat here on the side and see. Stick around. If you have to leave, I absolutely get it. But sometimes the Q&A is probably equally valuable. So if you have any specific questions, please don't hesitate to ask me now. Come off mute or put it in the chat. Hey, Tamika Singleton. I haven't seen you in a long time. Hey, girl, hey. Okay. I thought I saw your name. I said, wait a minute, I know her. How are you? You're on mute.
I was sitting up here saying, I know this is not my Christie. You better go, girl.
Our kids played sports together. One of the, moms on the sidelines all those years out at the football field. So it's good to see you.
It's likewise, sweetheart. Thank you for so much knowledge and wealth. That was so useful.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Anybody else have questions, or did I do such a thorough job? I don't know about that, but a thorough job answering most of your questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a freshman in high school, and that is my first child to go to high school. So I have no experience and no knowledge about the high school, but I jot some things that you talk about the GPA and stuff. How do I get him to start taking that, or do they take it in middle school before they get to high school?
So your grade point average is kind of like your Social Security number in terms of your academic performance. Each year when you have your grades to come out, they will calculate your grade point average each semester. Some students have a GPA entering into high school, like my sons did, because they took high school classes in the 8th grade. Spanish, I want to say a foreign language, and math courses. They took high school courses. So at the end of each semester, the school counselor, that department will calculate, they'll take the grades and they'll calculate the GPA And they'll keep doing that every semester. You'll have a semester GPA, and then they'll have a cumulative GPA for your whole high school, all of your high school semesters totaled up. So if you work with your son, if you're in Prince William County, the Naviance system and the parent portal system, I think now through the parent portal, you can actually get an unofficial copy of your transcript. That will have the GPA listed on it.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
You did. Okay, I'll come back with my next question. I'll let someone else ask, but I'll come back with my next question. And thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Who's next? Any live souls? Everybody has all the information they need. Well, okay, Miss Corte, if I'm pronouncing your last name, please feel free with your next question. You're on mute if you're talking.
And I have a question because my son is kind of in a small group that they go to the same school. They've been going to the same school for a while. They are in the same game. And I noticed that they are also going to the same school for high school. But how do I separate him?
Say that again. He's
How
going
do I separate him?
separate him from.
Small group that he have made that I do not approve of.
Oh, his friends, his peer group.
Sometimes it felt like I'm holding him back. I don't let him mingle and stuff. And it's hard.
Are they getting into trouble? What's the conundrum?
I got a news from other parents from my area seeing those people. So since then, I've kind of held him home. But I want also to keep him extremely busy. And he loves the sports. He also wants to do, he said his second choice will be real estate. But I want to keep him in, I want like activities or something that he can do aside of school, just to take those people away and just keep him busy. He also is also very good with cars. But as young as he is, I do not want to introduce him to much.
I can answer that. So I know your son. I'm the coach at Garfield. So what we tell the kids every day is you have to be very careful for your associations, and they can't see it now. They can't. Everyone's a friend. Everyone's their buddy. So, but by him playing sports, in particular football, we're going to teach them and instill in them self-discipline and self-confidence, where he doesn't have to depend on those associations that do not have the same goals and goals and wants that he would like to do. So your son, he's really trying to do really well at football. He's doing really well in the weight room. We get them next week, pretty much every day for the rest of the summer. Those guys that he's hanging around with, they're going to fall off because they're not going to have the self-discipline to continue with football. It does take self-discipline to be in a program, to be in a sports program, any academic program. So just give us time to develop him. You can reach out to me anytime if you have issues, and we can talk about all this stuff. But I've already told those guys that we want them to get rid of we call them crabs in the bucket. We do not want you to be in the same bucket with the crabs. We want you to get out and do your own thing and walk your own road. So those are the messages that we send to the kids every day.
And I'll add to that and say this, with my sons, that's always a concern as a parent. I always try to get to know the parents of the children that my children spent time with. I would encourage my children and I would let them know, sure, you can go after I meet the parents, after I talk to the parents, because see, there has to be some mutual accountability between households and a better understanding of value systems or lack thereof. And I'm not saying that will be the sole solution to your problem, but I do find that when young people recognize that parents have the ability, we exchange numbers and emails, and we're communicating with each other frequently, it cuts down a whole lot of nonsense. And those who aren't willing to share that information or invite their parents to meet yours, some of that will show through as well. And, I would make that as a caveat for my son. I have to meet the parents. We have to be on the same page. We have to communicate. And that certainly helped to some extent.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm looking through my notes and I'll come with my next question.
All right. Anyone else have a question? Katrina, I see your hand raised. Is that you?
I do have a quick question.
Sure.
I wanted to know, what's your opinion on these recruiting agencies?
Good question.
Where they help you get your video posted? Because I met with one, and since this is my first round of high school and sports, I'm completely unsure if this is a good route. So I just wanted to get your opinion from your experience and then of course, your expertise.
And so my sons, I did the same thing, Miss Katrina. NCSA, I'm gonna put them out there. We set up profiles. I paid the little subscription fee. They posted videos and transcripts and communicated with some schools, and some schools, inquire. You can see which schools view the profile and all that. But I'll be honest, I wish I could have gotten my money back. And I wish that I had have not signed up. I don't think that we saw a lot of fruits of our labor or got the value for our money out of that. One good thing that I will say is it's good if you're trying to research colleges, or if you're trying to make some initial contact with coaches. Some of the coaches actually use those methods to communicate more so than they do if you just directly reached out and called or emailed a coach. So it could have its benefits. And I'm not saying it hasn't been helpful to some families, and you have to make that judgment call individually. But I still believe that getting out and marketing yourself, the students marketing themselves, making sure that your high school coaches know what you want to do. And as recruiters are coming in, they're getting visibility to their students with those individuals, and finding other ways, your social media, and direct means of communicating with coaches. Probably go on a college tour, stop by the athletic department, find out who's there that day in your particular sport, and introduce yourself. So it's, as long as it's in the contact window of when you can do face-to-face. So don't let Miss Christie tell you outside of that, but follow the NCAA requirements on when you can have face-to-face contact. But those things to me probably help my son more so than that NCSA profile I paid for times 2 kids. Any other questions? Tamika, is your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in and tell the young lady. So I also did NCSA, and my son also did Prospect ID. So we have 2 recruiting companies that we use. But I will tell you, just if you plan on going that route, do your research on the company, because I found that Prospect ID was far more helpful than NCSA. The lines of communication with coaches was a lot more sustainable, because we got contacted to go to so many prospect camps over this summer, which with NCSA, I really kind of just didn't really hear nothing. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you that Prospect ID, they kind of circle back and they make sure that you are getting in contact with the coaches that you really want to go to the schools with. So they were really helpful for us in that aspect. But I will tell you that there's a lot of work that you also have to do on your end when you're using these programs, no matter whether you are using them as an avenue to get out to the coaches. They're great for that, but there's a lot of work that you also have to do by yourself to be able to get in contact and make yourself available to these coaches. But they do provide a means for you to be able to contact them. So that's just our experience on it.
Thank you both.
Definitely appreciate it. Justice, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I got a question. So if you want to play a college sport The only way you can play college sports to sign up for the NCAA eligibility thing. That's the only way.
Yes, sir. You got to be prepared to meet those requirements. 16 core courses, GPA, SAT eventually post-COVID, and amateurism standards, and get your NCAA ID number. Do you think that's going to present some challenges for you?
Yeah. And how do you get the 16 core courses? How do you know what type of classes and core courses that class they are?
When you go to their website, they have a whole list of courses: 3 maths, 4 maths, 3 Englishes, 2 social sciences, or it could be social science or science. They have certain category of the subjects that you'll need core courses in to total up to those 16. But all that information is on their website. What's going to be the challenging part if it's not too personal? Is it just going to the website and figuring out how to navigate it, or other personal things?
I don't think anything. I was just asking for the core classes and how to actually, no, to get there will probably be the problem.
To get to the website?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm gonna tell you, like I tell my sons, y'all can get to anything else y'all want to get to, and some of the things y'all don't have no business getting to. Google it. If you go in and you Google NCAA core course requirements, it'll pop up.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Let's see. I thought I saw another hand raised, unless that's you, Justice, still. Any other questions? I know we're over our time. We're right at the top of the hour. Ms. Corte, do you have any last final questions before I
had a question for you, Dr. Murray.
Sure.
You said that my daughter just finished her freshman year, going on her sophomore year now. She is interested in basketball, and I was interested in that NCAA ID you said we have to sign up for. I can get her signed up for that, but once they have the task for you to complete, do they tell you how you verify it so they can have that checked off in their system that you completed it?
So what happens is, let's say they say submit official transcripts. Mm-hmm. When your high school submits the transcripts and you log back into your account, it'll automatically show a check mark and tell you that item was received, and it'll automatically check it off of your transcript, off of your task list through their system. If they ask you to complete the amateurism questions, you go through and follow the prompts and you complete the questions. And when it's completed and submitted, their system will automatically mark it complete for you. So once you create that account, you save the username and password all in one place, like I mentioned earlier. When you go back in and periodically look at the account, it'll show and log in, it'll show you what's been completed and what still is outstanding to be completed. And that way you'll know what's coming next, and may even prompt you when you need to have it in by. It'll have due dates on it as well. So it'll give you a little bit of guidance as to what you need to do and when it has to be done.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My last question. How soon or when can he sign up for the eligibilitycollege.org? Does he have to finish freshman, or he can do it while he's starting, or he have to be in?
He can do it while he's a freshman. He may not have all the documents to submit, but he can go ahead and create his eligibility certification account. He can pay his $90 now, and then he won't have to pay it again over the next 4 years. And then each year, as more tasks are needed and documentation that's provided, then he can continue to log back in and make updates to his account over the next 3 to 4 years. I highly recommend freshmen and sophomore do it. Matter of fact, if I was a college coach, a high school coach, which I'm not, nobody invited me to coach on their team yet, but if I was a high school coach, I would have an exercise with all my athletes where they would all have to log in and create their account and provide me their NCAA ID numbers. Because as a coach, I think that making sure your players, I commend Tony Killing for having this for his students. A lot of coaches don't, and a lot of students don't know this information, but it gives him the ability to monitor them over the next 4 years academically. Are you meeting the eligibility requirements, and give them some guidance through the process. And if you can start that their freshman year, they will be well positioned. I guarantee you, if more schools and athletic programs had the kind of talk we're having tonight with their entire student athlete body, they would see their number of college NCAA students, probably the number who get into and play those sports, Division 1 through 3, increase substantially.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, well, thank you, everyone. It has been my absolute pleasure. Coach Tony, please let me know how I can support your program or any Prince William County program who may need this. Parents, students, scholar athletes, best of luck to you. I'm going to also put my email address in the chat so that if you have other questions and you think I can be of assistance to you, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's my email address. So feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to support you. I want everybody to enjoy the rest of their night and sign up for some of the upcoming workshops we have, especially the Youth College Excellence Summit on August 14th and 15th. It's free and live and virtual. And thank you for your time tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening.